As a person born in the 1970s to a white Jewish mother and a black Christian father, yeah, I like to say I was lucky enough to decorate the Christmas tree and spin the dreidel. Okay, I am the poster child for diversity and inclusion, or again, lack thereof. But there was a lot of pain in that family unit. My mom's parents were not at all happy about my mom marrying somebody outside of her race. And so my father and I were never invited to family gatherings. In fact, my father was never allowed to go to my grandparents' house. And I, on the very rare occasion I would go, but I would stay with my dad when my mom would go. And that created in me this sense of not being worthy, right, as a child. So I would go to my grandparents' home. And another symbol of me not being welcome there, or that I wasn't included, is I would go and there'd be all of my white cousins' photos would be lining the walls. But mine were nowhere to be found. My grandmother hid my photos in her bedroom so her house guests couldn't see them. Of course, I didn't know this till later on. When we think about inclusion and belonging, I didn't even have a photo in the family gallery. I was relegated to the margins of my family. And think about that deeply. That is the most important unit, as we think of us here, that you really have on this planet. It's a sense of having a family who includes you, welcomes you, makes you feel like you have a purpose inside of that place. Okay, despite all of that, my grandmother and I had a very tight relationship, even though it was strange to many. And I knew that she cared about me because she would call me her little Loya. She'd cut off that R on the end because of her thick Bronx accent. And I knew it. Now, cut to a decade later, and now my grandmother's passed away. And I have a conflict. I have to decide whether I'm going to go to her funeral or not. And when I'm there in that moment, I say, well, I want to honor her legacy, the love that she had for me and the love that we had for each other. But on the other hand, I had never been invited to any family gatherings, and I'm feeling distinctly unwelcome. But I made a decision. I said this: she's my family member just like anyone else's. And we had a love, so I went anyway. Okay? I walked into that funeral parlor, and I could hear the voices, the whispers. I could feel the critical stares on my back like, you don't belong here. But I walked with pride through that procession, and guess what? For the first time in my life, I was part of the inner circle. I walked in with the entire family while everybody watched and whispered, and I walked right up in with the casket to see my grandmother to her next life. For me, it was an interesting journey. And after that moment, I was very overwhelmed, let's say, by what was happening to me. I go to her house just to kind of say my farewells, my finals. And I walk into her room for some quiet, and I look over on her mirror. And I see all those photos of me from age 5 till law school. But you know what else I did not see? My white cousin's photos were not lining her mirror. And right there in that moment, I said, I belong. I said I was included, but it was in her way. And I realized the complexity that was deep from within that. And so today, I'm here. It puts me in this position. All of this pain puts me in the position to talk to you today about the things that we can do in our shoes, not pointing to someone else to do it, but in our shoes to say, what can we do in our circle to bring people into our teams, into our organization, into our mission in a more inclusive way so they feel like they belong there.